then that'll help me spot questions as they come through. Now, today we have a special session because we have a guest, a good friend of mine who has been part of the Value Price Academy now for several years. His name's David Kolts, and David's one of these wonderful people who comes to almost every session I do for many years, and now I'll probably ask David how many years it's been now. But David's uses the software a lot and does some really interesting things. And one of the things that he does particularly well is using custom keywords. Now, if you're brand new to these sessions, by the way, we always have a theme to them. So if you've never seen the software before, you might feel a little bit lost because we have some people here who have never used the software. We have some people who are advanced users. So we always have a theme to the sessions. This is not a beginner session, but nevertheless, what we will do is you can still ask your questions, and I'll show you some stuff later. And also, I've got some various links and things for you as well that I'm going to put them actually. Let me do it. Let's see if this works. Yeah, so I've put, I'm not sure if something went wrong there. I'll let my team post the links in there. But we've got some other things. We've got a checklist for getting started with the software. We'll put some various links in the chat box as we go through. Anyway, I think that's enough of me because I'm going to come back later and answer all of your questions. So if you are new and if anything's confusing, if you don't know what the software does, if you want a quick demo of how you use it in front of a client, I can do all of that when we get to the last half hour and the Q&A. But what I'd like to do now is actually introduce our very special guest, my good friend David Kolts from over in Texas. So let me bring David on. David, hi there.
Hello. How are you doing?
Great. Audio's perfect. That's awesome.
Excellent.
So, David, how long now have you been part of the academy? You probably know better than me.
I think this upcoming, I think it's been about 3.5 years.
I
joined around January or February. So yeah, 3.5 years, I'd say.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, David, before you dive into the demonstration, perhaps just for 30 seconds, if you could just introduce yourself as in, I've already said where you're from, but what sort of practice have you got? What sort of things do you do in your practice? Just a quick overview, and then we'll dive straight into the reason you're here.
Sure. I'm a one-person CPA firm. I focus primarily on tax prep, tax planning, and tax resolution. So if people have issues with your governmental entity, then I represent clients and help try to make things work out as best as possible for them. So those are the 3 areas I primarily work. So.
Awesome, David. So should we go straight to the demo?
Sure.
Are you ready? So I'll move the screen across to your screen. If you have questions for David, stick the Q in front beforehand. Okay, here we go.
Great. Okay, so just want to say welcome to everybody for joining. A while ago when I was working with the software, I saw a really big opportunity to be able to provide some flexibility to the software to customize some things related to the use of keywords. So when I originally started using the software had some keywords we could use, but there wasn't enough flexibility. And what I ultimately ended up doing is getting the reports out of effective pricing and then going to a separate tool. But once Mark was able to add this feature into effective pricing, really everything changed for me. So I moved everything as much as I could into his software. And that's what I'm going to share a little bit today on, kind of what I did in that area. So basically, for those that are not familiar with keywords, there's 3 areas where keywords kind of touch inside of Mark's system. One of them is under Keyword Manager. So the way you get up here, you got your gear. So you click the gear and it'll pull this up. So Keyword Manager is where you define your variables. And so these are variables that can be used by all of your different clients. And you can assign different values for each client. So these are kind of the variable names that I have in here. And I won't go into the specifics on why I selected these. I'll show you that at the end and how I figured that out. But these are some of the variables that I've added in here. So you can see spouse, state. One of the things I really needed was to be able to specify the specific year. So what I did is was able to add those and other things. So this is basically where you define your keywords. All right, so let me go to clients real quick here. Okay, so I added a client here, and if you go under view and edit, and under keywords here, these are all the variables that I had defined, and then I'm able to provide values. So I'm able to enter in the specific states, the specific years, spouse names, what's the accounting method I'm using, things like that. So I'm able to put that information in here. And I think that's primarily that. Okay, let's take a look at proposals. So under proposal templates, I have a couple of proposals that I put in here. I have one called a bookkeeping proposal. So we'll take a quick look at that. And if any of you are familiar with Microsoft Word and the mail merge feature, it works very similar to that. So probably the first thing you'll notice just on this cover page is I added the year. This is a variable that I had added, so I could specify the specific year and the specific service that I'm going to be providing for them. So now, Mark has, as a part of his default here, he's got these templates here that he puts in, and he's already referencing a lot of the variables. But I wanted to add a little bit of the kind of the legal pieces into the engagement, so I could cover some of my responsibilities, things that I am obligating myself to do, and things that I was not going to obligate myself to do. And so I took a lot of this and I added it into my proposal here. And so you can see variables that I'm adding in. So, so I built a couple sections. I built a header section, and then I started adding information. So in here, when I run this report, it'll say, for the given year, we are providing these services. And then I can start referencing things in here. So let me go in and see if I can generate a report quickly here. And Mark, after this, if there are any questions or anything, if they want me to cover something specifically, I can go in and touch base a little bit on that.
Absolutely, David. I'm keeping an eye out for any questions. No questions so far, but if they come through, I'll shout out.
All right. Mark, am I able to share my desktop or share like a PDF file that generates?
Yes, you should be able to. Yeah, absolutely.
Can you see it? Let me take a look. Are you seeing? You're seeing my screen, correct?
Yeah, I'm guessing what you did is, I'm guessing you downloaded that quote as a PDF in the software. It just wasn't clear at our end, but I think that's what you've done, isn't it? You just downloaded it as a PDF.
Yeah. So I've downloaded this as a PDF, and you'll notice in here that it's now, for example, that phrase before it shows, for 2020, we'll be providing these bookkeeping services. And so I can specify in the engagement what's going on here. Later on, and what I've used in the past, I'm in the process of switching to probably Practice Ignition. I used to import this into DocuSign, and then the customer would be able to sign. I could sign, and the client could sign. So that's kind of it, high level. I'm trying to see a couple things. One of the things that I did a little bit uniquely was I had asked a frequency question about how frequent you want to do the bookkeeping, because I wanted to specify in the engagement, what was going on. So in my case, if you went to Appendix 4, where some of the questions are being answered, or when some of the questions are being answered, then they could actually go in and see, oh, I wanted it monthly, and I've documented at the time, and I've tied in their response when I did the quote to put that into the engagement. So let me take a look at, let me see if it's in here. Yeah, so right in here, it would specify how often do you want us to do your bookkeeping. And so I make reference to that, so then that will obligate us to doing the work on that frequency. Let's see. And then I just specify in here, it's just my preference. I wanted to give a basic level of information of what I was going to cover, kind of at like an entry or an essential level. And later on, I mentioned payment. So when I received the original template, a lot of this referred to I would invoice you or send you a bill or something like that. And I took that phrasing out, and I replaced it with referring to what I'm calling Appendix 5, which gives the payment schedule that the client needs to meet. And then if payments are past due, then I can elect to stop work. So those are some of the types of things that I'm adding in mind. Let me go down to Appendix 5 just to show you. So when I did the quote for this one, I would specify, they need to meet this schedule, and then I refer to that back in the document under the payment section. Let's see. Yeah, so it's right in here. And basically, what I would say for anybody that's looking to put something like this together, find a contract that you're comfortable with. You're going to have different variables where you will need to change out names and maybe the level of service you're providing. The tricky part I found was, again, the frequency. So I handled that by having that question specified that it's in one of the appendices. And then whatever they selected there is what I'm going to be honoring. So that's kind of high level, Mark. What's going on? I want to be conscious of time and things like that. If people have questions.
Great. Well, we do have a question come in, and I had a question go through my mind, and then I think Rennie's asked a question which clarifies. So I thought it might be useful to just recap on the custom keywords that you'd set up. But Rennie then went and said, I didn't follow what you were saying, David, in edit client about keywords. In my copy of effective pricing, I can see keywords heading in edit client, but no option to add keywords. So now I think that people understand more about how you're putting keywords, specific things like year, so you can build that in automatically into the proposal. If you could perhaps go back to the beginning and just go back through again and show how you set up those custom keywords, where that is in the software.
So here are some existing keywords in here. I'm trying to think of one that would be one I could add.
I'm just thinking, do you want to go, can you go back a step, David, because maybe people don't know where that is, that custom keyword section.
So when you log into effective pricing, you have this gear right here, and you can select that gear, and that would bring this this screen up here where you can modify your settings. And in here you have keyword manager, and down here you have proposal templates. So to add a keyword, brand new keyword, you go in here, and then you could specify a keyword in here. So for example, let's say I wanted to add maybe my address, my firm's address. So I could go in here, I could click add a keyword, and I could put firm address. So there it is, it's been added. Let me go ahead and do city, state, zip as well. Okay, so at this point we've created the variables. So the next thing we'd want to do is assign values to those variables. And you do that at each client, you would assign a new variable. So let's go to clients. And again, you can go to clients through the same way. You can go through settings, and I believe it says clients and quotes. You can do it that way as well. I have a option off to the side on the menu. Okay, so I'm going to modify the values for this client, Longhorn Cattle and Ranching, and I'm going to click View and Edit. Okay, and then under Keywords, when I select that, those new variables will show up, but they won't have values for them. So you see down here, these two new variables that I just added, nothing exists for them. So at this point, I could put in address. And then down here, I could put city, state, and zip. So at this point, we've created values for this specific client. And we've also, in the prior step, we defined those variables. And so now let's go to the proposal. So again, I'll go to settings. And proposal, and let's add them in there. Let's go ahead and put those new variables in there. So you'll notice in the past I had hard-coded these values in, but now we can actually use a variable. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to modify the screen here. And you'll notice that the moment I clicked modify, the keywords displayed here. So you see those keywords? The ones at the top are the ones Mark has originally provided. So you just continue to scroll down. And I believe they're listed in the order that you created them. So the keywords for the address will be at the end. So you see here they are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and remove this. I'm going to use firm address there. Okay, so at this point I can save this. And mark save and continue. We'll see what it looks like.
While it's doing that, David, let me just clarify a couple of points. So what I should have said earlier is David's actually on a test account because he didn't want to reveal, quite rightly so, client confidential information. So Sybil asked the question, is that where you would put your own logo in as well? Sybil,
Yeah.
in terms of your logo, you would actually put that in customization, and your logo where you saw in the proposals the effective pricing logo, it will automatically replace that with your own logo, Sybil. And normally on David's copy, that would show his firm's logo, but he's using a test account now, as I said, because he doesn't want to show his client data. Okay, let me carry on with some questions. Give me a thumbs up when
Sure.
it's ready, because again, David's not on his version; he's on a test account, so it's not got his beautiful branding and colours and everything else, Sybil. And there's a few more things that aren't exactly how he'd normally set them up. He's playing around with it. John from Greece said a question which actually I didn't fully understand, David, and so he said the choice of frequency is dynamic via the site, or client must print and fill in. And my understanding from what he said is that's a question you have when determining the price, and we've not looked at that. That's the front end. Perhaps in a little while when David's finished, John, I can look at the front end and walk you through that. But yes, you could ask the client that question. But did you make it dynamic in the proposal?
Yeah, the question was, it was a challenge that I had trying to do the frequency piece, because there was nothing in there that allowed the customer to customer, they're going to have different frequencies. So I wanted to figure out a way I could document the selection that the customer made for the frequency of me doing the work. And I thought the best way to do that would be to add it as a question when you do the quote, and then it would get documented in the appendices. And then in my contract, I could refer to that appendices. And that's the way I got around that. So that's kind of the idea. And in a second, I'll show you where I added that question. And then I made reference to it in here. So you'll see right here that the address here is the same. I guess maybe I should have selected a different address. But yeah, that's the address. That's a variable that then that got imported in there. So, but that's basically what happened there. So let me go back to the frequency question that I had put in there. So again, I hit settings, went to model management. And under bookkeeping here,
it's there near the bottom of the page.
Yeah, here it is. How often do you want us to do your bookkeeping? So that's a real critical question, because I referenced that question in the proposal. So If I go in here, then it just gives the increases. So it does kind of two purposes. It allows me to adjust the value depending on the frequency of the work, but it also, I reference that so that when the appendices provides this, it'll actually provide the answer of what was selected. So that's, did that answer the question? Did
I think it did, David. And I don't think there's any more questions for you. I've got a question from Nancy, but I think I'll probably answer that by way of just summing up. Yeah, no other questions. So on that case, I'm going to ask people, what else do you want to know about the software? But David, thank you so much for joining us and sharing some different ways that you use custom keywords, because I think a lot of people don't realize that feature's there. And it's actually David that originally suggested that feature. Originally, you only had the ones that we created, like name of quote, date of quote, those fairly standard things. But you've got so much flexibility of other things that you could create. And thank you, David, for giving us an insight into some of the custom keywords that you've set up. Sure. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, so Nancy said, and then we're running short of questions and we have half an hour. So what else do you want to know about the software? Perhaps those of you that are brand new, maybe you want me to show the front end or whatever. But Nancy said for each client, do you have to put in the values for each of your keywords that you use? So yes, so the way the process is that you create your custom keywords, things that you might want to know, and think of it as a database. So then what you have to do is you have to populate that for each separate client. So let's say, for example, you want to have in your proposals, perhaps you do, and I'm making something up, it might be a crazy idea, a crazy thing, but perhaps in your proposals for tax returns, you want to refer in there to the name of the spouse. And therefore, you might want to have that automatically put the spouse's name in. So you can create a keyword for that. And then as long as you populate that for each client in the database of what their spouse's name is, it'll automatically pull that into the proposal. Now, David's full of great ideas, by the way. So custom keywords was his idea about 18 months ago, and we built that in about 6 months ago, I think. What he then said, which is something we will do. I can't promise when yet, but David said it would be great if you could actually have custom keywords at the client level, but also the proposal level, so that you could have custom keywords that you don't have to fill in for the client, but for the proposal itself. And that might be that you're doing the proposal, you've just agreed the price for doing the tax return for the client, you now want to produce the proposal, and you want to have a keyword for what year of tax return. Is it the 2020-21 tax return? And you could put it in there and it'll automatically insert it into your proposals or engagement letters. So that hopefully has answered your question, Nancy. So what other questions do you want? What do you want me to show you about the software? It can be anything you want now. So let me see. William says it was a great explanation. It makes me more confident about creating proposals. Thank you, William. And someone said last week, can we do a whole session on proposals? And yes, we certainly will do that. But one of the things we'll do is we'll leave that a few weeks because we're going to be making some big improvements soon to the proposal process. So once we've done those, we will then look at that. I don't understand Valerie Chan, the question I'm not too sure about. I think you haven't finished it off, perhaps. It says, in bookkeeping UK model, : and that's all I've got, Valerie. So I'm not quite sure what you mean. Perhaps you might want to just clarify that. Kim Lafayette says, Mark, I know you've mentioned in the past that it's on the roadmap to have digital signing ability. Is there a future ETA of when you anticipate having this option? There's not, Kim, and the reason for that is because it's going to be much easier and better to integrate with other systems, and we're going to be working on integration soon. But I also know that you may have seen the session we did with David Pankovic a few weeks back, and where he showed how he does his quoting, is agreeing the price in the software, how he does his proposals and makes them look beautiful. And then he showed how he puts them into Practice Ignition. And Practice Ignition does the digital signing, the collecting of the money, the onboarding process. So if anybody's a Practice Ignition customer, then effective pricing and Practice Ignition really go together nicely And there's a video we have now for you where David Pankovic shows you exactly how he does it, how he transfers the proposal into Practice Ignition. So if you use that, Kim, that will be a solution. If you don't, we'll get there as soon as we can, because I know a few people are asking for digital signing. Okay, Leah says, I am new to using the effective pricing tool. Can you start from the beginning to show how to get in and an overview of how to use it if possible? Absolutely, I will do. Before I do that, let me just answer this next question that's come in. So I don't know who it is because they're in the Facebook group. If you're in the Facebook group watching this live, unless you click on a link to give permission, I don't know who you are. But somebody says, so does the proposal also double as an engagement letter? And the answer is that you can create as many proposal templates as you want. We provide you with a few to get you started, but you can create as many proposal templates. You can build out the templates. So you could have separate proposals with different wording for different services. You might have a different proposal wording for tax returns versus business advisory, for example. And then when you use the software to agree a price, which is what we'll do next, because Leah Berger just asked that, when you agree a price, so now we'll look at the front end bit of it, but once you've agreed the price and the client says yes and they're happy, and the next stage is to create the proposal. And when you create the proposal for that quote, you can create multiple proposals. In other words, you have a choice. You could either create a proposal template that's a proposal with all the terms and conditions, the technical stuff, the engagement letter stuff if you want. Or if you want to, you could create a proposal template with the key information that everyone wants to know, the price, what is it, what do you get, what's the payment terms, and then separately you could have a separate engagement letter template with the more terms and conditions type stuff. And when you create a quote, you can then create two separate documents for that quote. You can create a proposal and an engagement letter. So it's entirely up to you whether you combine proposals and engagement letters into one document or you have multiple types of documents that you attach to that particular quote. Okay, let me now, for the benefit of Leah Berger and also for those of you that typed in new earlier that are probably now wondering, well, what does the software do? Let me just open up my software on here. I think I am there. Yep. Okay, so let's just switch across. And let me just... Okay, so I'm back again. Right, here we go. So for those of you brand new who now feel you've missed something, the purpose of effective pricing is to agree a price with the client face-to-face in the meeting. You want to agree the price in the meeting, not after the meeting, because when you're in the meeting, you're in control of the process. And the software can be used to price anything that limits your imagination. So we provide you with some templates to get you started, which you can choose from. And so if I just go into the settings behind the scenes quickly, the cogwheel, David's shown you some of these things. The place you'll spend most of your time is model management. Actually, to go back to Sybil's question, theme and design, that's where you upload your logo, and that will appear throughout the software and in the proposals. That's customization. You didn't see David's because he used a test copy. Model management is where you create your models, and at the bottom, depending on which plan you've got, whether you've got the starter level, the full, or the pro, will determine how many models you've got available. But if you've got the pro version, we've written models to get you started for bookkeeping, annual financial statements, payroll, cleanup work, incorporations, tax planning, personal tax returns, a whole bunch of different models. These are pre-written pricing models that you can use to get you started. You pick the ones you want and it clones them and gives you a copy of them, and they'll appear up here so you can edit and change them. And David gave you a quick insight into his bookkeeping one where he has the question, how frequently do you want the bookkeeping? So that's the back end. You can basically the limits, you can create your own your own pricing models from scratch. And you could price absolutely anything. It doesn't have to be accounting services. So I know some people are helping their clients with pricing and creating versions of the software branded for their clients. So you could price how to do web design. You could price how to do a legal contract. Anyway, we're accountants here and bookkeepers, so let's stick with what we know. So I've got a whole bunch of models I've set up. I've got lots of things because it's my test account. But let's pick something. What should we do? Should we look at, let's do business advisory for a change. Well, I think I did it. Yeah, we'll go with business advisory. So let's imagine you've had a meeting with a client and they want to grow their business, and you've asked some questions and you've built up the value of your advisory service. They want to buy your advisory service. You've explained that you have 3 different options. You've got a bronze, a silver, a gold. You've gone through the different packages. They've said to you, yes, I want the middle one. I want your silver, your middle business advisory package. The only question left is what's the price? And that's where the software kicks in. Once the client wants to buy, you then open up your laptop or your iPad, whatever it happens to be. In this case, I'm going to click on Business Advisory. And what we'll then do is we'll put in the client's name, and that will do for now. And then what we do is we have a workflow. You'll see under Business Advisory, you'll see you work through the process with the client. The starting point is to ask a series of questions. And you can create, when you build these models, you can create whatever questions you want. In the models I've built for you, I give you some suggested questions that you might use and pricing. So if you're doing advisory, you might want to ask the question, what accounting system are they on? Because if you're going to produce management information, that might affect how much work, the scope of the work. Because if they're on an Excel-based spreadsheet, you're going to have to do a lot of work to turn that into something meaningful to present every month. But if they're on your preferred cloud accounting system, let's say you're a QBO Pro advisor, and if they're using QuickBooks, QBO, then it's really easy to extract the information, the reports, the data for doing monthly management reports. So you might want to ask what system they're on. You might want to ask them what's the quality of their bookkeeping. And of course, if you're doing the bookkeeping for them, then hopefully it's going to be perfect. Okay, let's imagine it's not. It could be that it's average. They're trying to do it themselves. It's okay bookkeeping. You might want to ask what sector they're in. That might impact on the price. You might do specific, if they're in the construction industry, you might have specific management reports that you do for the construction industry with specific ratios and analysis that relate to that particular industry. I've then got another page of questions, which is we might want to ask, just like David showed with bookkeeping, we might want to ask with advisory work is how often do they want the management reports? Monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly? And you could create a list here of as many frequencies as you want. If I was in front of a client, I would say, I recommend you have monthly reports. And the client, I'd explain why, and the client would probably say, yep, I agree, I want monthly. Great. If they want monthly, that partly determines the price. I might also ask them how many times they want to meet, because whilst it's logical that if they want monthly reports, you meet once a month to discuss the numbers, it might be for various reasons you do a monthly report and you meet once a quarter. We'll look at that in a short while. We might also give the client the choice of where they want to meet. Do they want us to travel to them? Are they happy to travel to you? In this day and age with the pandemic, it might still be an online meeting. But let's say the client says, let's say the client says, I want you to come to me every month. Okay, we can do that. Of course, you would charge a higher price because you've got to travel every single month. So you build into your pricing based on how these questions are answered. We might also want to, and these are just suggestions, but if the client's doing their own bookkeeping and you're producing the management information from their bookkeeping, then you might want to ask questions like, would you like us to review your bank reconciliations before we produce the management reports? Oh, that would be useful. That would check that things have been done right. Do you want us to provide you with industry-specific reports? We have some expertise in the construction industry. We have some particular reports with particular ratios and analysis for construction. Would you like those specific reports? Yes, please, that will be useful. So we ask the clients questions to determine what things they value. And if they value things, they will say yes. And effectively what's happening is, behind the scenes, it's putting it in the virtual shopping basket. The price is going up behind the scenes. So we ask a series of questions. We might ask who they want to deal with in the monthly meetings. Do you want to deal with me, the senior partner, every month when we look at your numbers? Or are you happy to deal with, and you could list your team here, would you be happy to deal with Fred, my manager? And of course, you know they all want to deal with you. And that's fine. If they want to deal with you, that's great. That means they value working with you, but of course your price would be higher. So Leah, you asked the question. Once you've asked you ask questions to determine the scope of the work, like what accounting system are they on, what quality is the records, and choices and preferences. Do they want to meet with me or my assistant? Do they want it done monthly, quarterly, whatever? So we give people choices because we're value pricing, and we therefore build up the price based on the value, the things that they want. And then what we do is we get to this page. Once we've asked the questions, we now show them the different choices. Now I've set this up with 3 packages. Think of it as the bronze, silver, gold. I've just called it starter option, full reporting, and premium reporting in this particular model. And ideally what you've done is before you opened up the software, you'd already had a paper-based or brochure, like for example, you might have had a brochure for your advisory service showing, I don't know if you can see this very well, but showing the ticks and the crosses. And so ideally you do that in advance, but what you would then do here is remind them. You can remind them of all the things they get as part of the bronze, silver, gold. And they said they want the middle one, the full reporting. Okay, they want to buy the full reporting. Once the client has said what they want to buy and you've asked the questions, we then just reveal the price. That's the last thing we do. In this case, it's showing 12 payments of $1,075. It's got a dollar sign in front, just so you know, if you're in Greece, for example, if you're in Greece, you can put a euro symbol. It's really simple. You do it in the settings, you change the currency. So it works in any currency, but I've just set this up in demo mode for US dollars. So it reveals the price. In this case, the advisory would be $1,075 per month. And this is where the power of the software comes in, because at this point in time, it's the first time the client sees the price. And there's 2 things that can possibly happen, only 2 things that can happen. They either say, yes, I'm happy with that, when do we get started, which is a great result for you because it would be hopefully a good price, or they say that's expensive. And if they say that's expensive, that's not a problem because we've planned for that. In other words, if they can't afford 12 lots of 1,075, then we work with them and change things. Now, of course, we could offer a different package. We could offer the starter package, which is 827, which is this one over here. But we don't have to go there yet, because what we can do is first, they want the middle package. They want all the things in the middle one. The reason it's 1,075 is because they've chosen some other things. So what we just do is we go back and we say to the client something like, you would pick something that they chose that they perhaps weren't sure about. So what I might do, for example, is I might say to the client, the reason it's that price is because we're doing monthly reports and meeting every single month. Now, I got the sense you don't need to meet it every single month, and so we could meet quarterly, and that would reduce the price. Would you want to look at what it might be if we meet quarterly? And they might say yes. So we have monthly reports, but we meet 4 times a year to discuss them. And what we can then do is that will recalculate behind the scenes the price. We come back to here, and we simply can see now, you can see it's now 12 payments of 865. And this is the important thing you need to remember. The first price you reveal, which is 1,075, clients have no idea what the price should be. They have no idea. And this is something we learned from price psychology. So the first price you reveal creates in their mind what's called an anchor. And they'll use that to judge everything else. So now they're judging 865 because they've seen the price of 1075. Remember, they want to buy from you. They want to buy from you. It's just a price issue. And if 1075 is too high, not a problem, we change something. But we create an anchor. They're more likely now to say yes at 865. Had we have said at 865 first, that would have been the anchor, and that might have been too expensive. But in comparison to 1075, it feels expensive. So they may well say yes. And if they say yes, you're happy because you've got a great price and you only have to meet them 4 times a year, not 12 times. But if it's too expensive, we just go back and change something else. Perhaps we might change it so that it might be the price is that because they want to meet with us. But actually, if they were happy to work with Fred, and you could bring Fred into the meeting right now, you might say, well, that's because you want to work with me. If you're happy to meet with Fred, my senior manager, and he, by the way, specialises in the construction industry, it will be a lower price. Would you like to see what that price would be? Well, of course they do. They want to see. And so now it's 645. And the point is we work with the client and just change things so we get until the client gets the package they're happy with at a price they can afford. We start high with the price and we work down. And the key thing is, for those of you that are new to this process of how we price, is as a profession in the past, because we don't like pricing, we feel uncomfortable, we give a price the client we hope will say yes. And if we give a price and the client says yes, in the past we've always celebrated and say, wow, we're a great salesperson. They said yes straight away. If the client says yes to your first price, you've gone in too cheap and you can't change it. It's too late. What you want to do is change your mindset. What you want to do is give a price that's too high, because when it's too high, you can work down from that to find out what is the maximum amount they are willing to pay. What is their budget? What's their maximum willingness by working down? So I know that's a long explanation, but I know there's a few people here who are new, and Leah, you did ask the question. So we have 13 minutes. Let me get through some more questions. Nancy said David's video is phenomenal. That was David Pankovic. Sorry, David Kolts. That might have been David Pankovic. Valerie, this was the question I didn't understand earlier. Valerie says, in bookkeeping, UK packages show maximize your tax deductions and cost control, expense monitoring, analysis and advice. Shouldn't there be a question where we ask the client whether they want these? Okay, so what Valerie is saying, let me go back to the software for a second. What Val is effectively saying is, when you're building your pricing and giving people choices and different options, one of the things that you will do is use menu pricing. Menu pricing is where you create, for example, 3 different choices, and it doesn't have to be 3 with the software, by the way. You can have any number of columns here between 1 package and 5 packages, but 3 is the norm because of something called the magic of 3. So in this particular advisory service, we've got, for example, let me just scroll down. It says, for example, with our premium reporting, you get rolling cash flow and profit forecasts. So if they want rolling cash flow forecast and profit forecast, they buy the expensive package, the premium reporting. So that's one way that we can give people choice. We can take a feature of what we do, like rolling cash flows, and say to the client, you get that with premium, you don't get it with full and starter. You don't get it with the bronze and the silver. And that's one way to give people choices. The other way to give choices is by asking the question, do you want a rolling cash flow forecast? Just like those questions I went through where it said, do you want industry-specific reports? Now, one of the things that you'll need to decide, Valerie, when you're building your pricing models and thinking about different things that you can do. So you just said in your question, what was it? Maximizing, let's use the other one. Cost control, expense monitoring, analysis and advice. And you're referring to bookkeeping. So if you're building a bookkeeping solution, and one of the things that you could do to add value is to build in cost control, some advice around managing costs, which is essentially what Valerie is saying, then you have a choice. You could either build that into a package, like that's part of your premium. If you buy the premium, then you get cost control, advice, consultancy. Or you could make it a question. And Valerie, it's an either or. You have to decide. You could make it a question. The difference is this. If you build it into a package, think of packages as fixed. These are fixed bundles. If you go in, so when you think of the bronze, silver, gold, think of it like going into McDonald's and buying a Happy Meal. A Happy Meal is a bundle. A Happy Meal is a bundle of things, in this case aimed at children, which will have some fries or carrots, a drink, some chicken nuggets, a toy, and a box that kids tend to like. And that's the package, okay? And there's a special price for that package. Now, you don't go into McDonald's and have the choice to say, I want a Happy Meal, but I don't want the toy, I want a USB drive instead. That's the package. Packages are fixed, okay? Whereas questions like, do you want your management reports monthly or quarterly, is a choice that people can choose regardless of which of your bundles they go for, which of your packages. So you can do it both ways, Valerie. The decision you have to make is, do you want to bundle something in and make it a fit part of a fixed package, or do you want to give people more flexibility by making a question? And if you're in the Value Pricing Academy, in the advanced group, I go into that in more detail and some of the thinking behind which is the best route. And it really depends on what it is that you're thinking about. And we'll talk about that. That's more the science of pricing, Valerie, which I'll talk about another day because I want to keep on the software for now. We have 8 minutes left and lots of questions. But hopefully that starts to answer your question. Okay, next one was Sybil says, could you not also add your firm's address in a similar fashion at the same level as your logo versus having to add it via keywords? Sybil, I'm answering on behalf of David, but yeah, the way that you can do is just effectively hard code it into your proposal, because your address won't change. Your address won't change. It'll be the same for every client. So generally, the custom keywords would be keywords where you want those variables to be something that change from client to client to client, like spouse's name would be a good custom keyword. A keyword that might be something like your firm's name, your logo, your address, that's the fixed. That's the same for everybody. So that you would just hard type into the proposal. One of the great ideas that David's had, I said earlier, is he said, could we not create keywords that some are client dependent, some are proposal dependent, and I think David had a third option, could there be some that are firm dependent, which is something that we're certainly looking at doing. So hope that helps. John from Greece says, the problems start when customers ask what if, what the price will be. So if you have 10 variables, you will have to talk about 10 prices. Okay, I'm not totally sure what you are saying there, so forgive me, but when you are, so let's talk about the science first. One of the things that we know is everybody values things differently. No two people place the same value on something, and so what we have to do is price, as my friend Ron Baker says, we have to price the customer, not the service. That means every client gets a different price. We don't have a standard price of $500 for doing a tax return. That would be crazy, because some people wouldn't be willing to pay $500. They'll only pay $300. Others might be willing to pay $1,000. So how do we find out how much people are willing to pay? How do we capture more of that value they're willing to pay? And we do it by giving choices. Essentially, choices is the key thing here. Now, one way of giving choice is what I call menu pricing, which is where you give people a bronze, silver, gold. So rather than a single price, we give people 3 choices. And some people who are willing to pay higher prices, who want premium, they will choose to buy the gold tax return service. Others on a tighter budget will choose the bronze. Menu pricing is extremely powerful. We make a lot more sales and at higher prices when we give people choice. So it's where you should always start off with when you're starting your value pricing journey. The one problem with menu pricing is you're only giving 3 prices. And pricing is complex. What we want to do is, essentially what we're trying to do is everyone values things differently, and everybody has what economists call a buyer's reservation price, more commonly referred to as the maximum willingness to pay. Everybody has a maximum, and your goal when you come in with your price is to have your price as close to that maximum as possible, because if you go in below that, this is the money that you've left on the table. Okay, you're throwing money away. And I know some people sometimes say to me, Mark, is that not unethical? Is that unethical to charge the client the maximum? No, because if they're willing to pay this, if they see value in paying $2,000 for your tax return service, then why wouldn't you charge them $2,000? Because when you do charge them $2,000, you have now got the space, the resource, the budget to go above and beyond and deliver extraordinary value, which creates a win-win situation. Whereas when we go in too cheap, we then find we're overworked, stressed, and we end up cutting corners. And it's the cutting corners that often lets the client down, because where we can add something, where we add the most value is very often what we can potentially do after the compliance work's done. It's not, the real value is not in doing the tax return or doing the financial statements. The real value is the meeting afterwards where you then give the advice. And if you're behind budget, we rush that bit of the process. It's in the client's interest to charge a higher price. Okay, so 3 prices with menu pricing versus 1 gives us a much higher chance of being closer to the maximum. But it's still only 3 prices. And so using different questions, preference questions, if, for example, we add a question, do you want it done weekly or monthly? And depending on the answer to that variable, that determines the price of the bronze, silver, gold. So if we've got weekly or monthly, we actually have 6 prices. We have 3 prices we give them if they want weekly, and 3 prices if it's monthly. That's 6 choices. Now, when we throw in some other options like, do you want to work with me or my assistant Fred? We start to build in complexity. And that's a good thing because A, the client's more likely to get exactly what they want at the price they want, and we're going to get closer to their maximum willingness to pay. So we want to build in complexity, which is why we need to have a software-based approach to do it. If you think about the airline industry, they change their prices millions of times a day. They use software, they have done for years, because they're using software in the industry to maximize the revenue on every airplane and every flight. They have an extremely complex pricing model because they know it maximizes revenue and profitability. Okay, let's move on. We have time for, I think, one more covered. John actually from Greece says I'm covered, so that's good, I think. I'm just going to see if there's somebody different I've not answered yet. Someone says, it's from Facebook, so I don't know who it is. So the software is generic and could, for example, be used in South Africa. Absolutely, it can do. It was designed to work in any country. So that means that when you go into the software and you go back to that cogwheel at the top, for example, and you go to theme and design, forgive me, I'm not sure of the symbol for rand, but I do know what euros are. So if I put in euros in that box, that's now going to give me my price in euros as opposed to dollars. I can change the date format to European format. If you're in Greece or Europe, I understand, because I'm in Portugal, I don't understand why, but the decimal points and the commas are the wrong way round. So 1,000 in Europe is 1,000. No, sorry, .000, and then comma for the decimal places. So you can swap these two around. You can change the symbols. So you can customize the number format. I have no idea what I'll put in there. Let's change that back to dollars. And also, if you're in a different country as well, all the prices you change yourself. They're numbers behind the scenes that you change. And you can even change the language, because the questions, you can choose what the questions are. We have somebody at the moment using it in Norway, and it's all in Norwegian. You can do that. So that's answered that question. We'll do one more question, I think. Okay, Leah Berger asks a really a clever question. Leah says, how did you know that the client wanted the middle package before asking them the question you went through earlier? Okay, so when you're using the software, you ask questions to identify the scope and other choices, other options, and then you reveal the price for your different packages. So it may be a bronze, silver, gold. Now you could, Leah, wait until then, when they see the prices, to then choose the option they want. However, what you really want to do is get them to choose the package they want before they see the price. Before they see the price. And that's the reason why, and I won't go back to the screen right now, but when you ask the questions and then you get to the screen with the columns, it doesn't actually show the price straight away. There's a separate button you now press called fixed price, and then the prices pop up. You want people to choose the package before you reveal the price. And you may even do that before you open the software up, because you've got a brochure which lists your bronze, silver, gold, and you ask them which one's right for them. Why do you want to do that, Leah? It's because of one of the primary rules of influence called commitment and consistency. You see, As human beings, that's you and I, we see it as a positive trait to be seen to be consistent in our actions. So if we tell somebody we're going to do something, we are more likely to follow through and do that thing. That's why things like accountability partners work so well with coaching, goal setting, and so on. We might like to be seen to be consistent in our actions. And so when you say to somebody, you go through your brochure, you build up the value of your service, and you say, this is what we do with the bronze, the silver, the gold, this is who this one's really aimed at, and the big benefit of our premium service, which one do you think is most appropriate for you and your business? And then let them tell you. They've not seen the price yet. But what happens is, let's say they say, do you know what, that premium one sounds like me. That's the one that I want. When you then go to the software and reveal the price of the premium, it may well be too high. And of course, we can change things in the way that I've shown. But what happens is, because of this law of commitment and consistency, people are more reluctant to change and go for a cheaper package. They're more likely to stick with what they told you they wanted at the outset. It's a powerful principle, and that's why I recommend you do it. If you prefer to wait till you've shown the price, you can do that, but why not test it? Why not test it and see how that works for you? Okay, we have now gone over time. For those of you that are brand new, I always keep these to 60 minutes. If I haven't answered your question and you've still got questions, then you have a couple of options. Number one is go into the Facebook group, Value Priced with Mark Wickersham. Ask me questions there. Ask questions. Other people in the group will answer them as well. Or wait till the next session. The next session is in 2 weeks' time, okay, because I have something special next week for people who have joined the Online Live Academy. I'm going to be teaching the first session next Friday. So the next of these sessions is in 2 weeks. We'll let you know via email or via the Facebook group. So come along to the session with any questions you want. I think the theme of the next one in 2 weeks' time, the theme is going to be, because we've had a request, can you show us how to use the software to build a model from the ground up? Rather than using your pre-written ones like bookkeeping, biz advisory, what if you want to build one from scratch? It may be you want to do QBO training for clients. I'm going to show you next time round how you build a model from scratch and how do you come up with the prices and all of that. So that's 2 weeks' time. Okay, have an amazing weekend. Have fun. If you're in the Value Pricing Academy, Bookkeepers Price Academy, we have all our training next week. I will see you then. If you want more of this, 2 weeks' time. See you soon. Goodbye for now.
I wasted all my time, I wasted all my nights, I wasted it on someone who's indifferent. He didn't love me right, he told me I was blind, but I never really wanted to listen.